Gene Baur, when did you start Farm Sanctuary?
Farm Sanctuary started in 1986, and we did this to investigate what's happening at factory farms and to educate people. And also we started rescuing animals that we would literally find left in trash cans or left on piles of dead animals. So we now operate 3 sanctuaries, one in upstate New York, 2 in California, where the animals get to live out their lives, where people get to come and visit, spend time with these animals, and recognize that they have feelings just like cats and dogs. They experience pleasure, they experience pain, they develop relationships with other animals and with each other. And at Farm Sanctuary they get to live out their lives. So it's a beautiful place for the animals and also for people who care about animals.
And you rescue them from all sources. What are some of those?
Yeah, Farm Sanctuary rescues animals from a variety of places. In some cases we found living animals left in trash cans or on piles of dead animals. We've rescued animals who have been released from factory farms during flooding and other disasters, where when the high waters come or in some other way the animals are released from their confinement. And unfortunately they oftentimes spend their lives in small cages and crates where they can't move, they can't even turn around or stretch their limbs, and they'll live this way their whole lives. We think that's wrong, we think that's inhumane, we think most people would not accept this if they saw it. So a big part of our work is to educate people. But a lot of the animals that come to Farm Sanctuary were rescued after a disaster or after some kind of circumstance where their condition was exposed. And once they come to us, they get to live out their lives. It's a beautiful thing to see.
It certainly is. And I've heard you say about changing hearts and minds in an interview once, and I thought that was such a perfect phrase. And what do people need to do to get to that place, even in their minds, so it can be in their hearts first and then their minds? How does that play out?
Well, you know, a big part of changing hearts and minds is actually really about just getting people to get reconnected with their own hearts and minds. A lot of times people live in denial of the kind of cruelty they're supporting when it comes to our food choices. Most people don't like what happens to animals on factory farms, but most people are unwittingly supporting this kind of abuse by buying meat, milk, and eggs. So we really encourage people ultimately to make food choices that are aligned with their own compassionate, humane values, because most people don't like to see animals suffer. But unfortunately, most people are unwittingly supporting that suffering by buying these products. We also want people to think more about their food choices and to become educated and to make informed choices. Because when people learn about the consequences of the way they eat, you know, most want to eat food that is healthy, that doesn't support an agricultural system that's destroying the environment, and also that doesn't cause animals to suffer horribly. So if people make choices that are aligned with their own values and their own interests, we're going to see a revolution in our food system. And I think we're beginning to see the beginnings of that right now. People are starting to go to farmers markets, people are investing in community-supported agriculture programs, people are getting involved with community gardens. These are all very, very positive things, and I think it bodes well for the future.
And you bring in the heart issue, because when people look at their cats and dogs, they would never ever eat them. And yet they feel that the other animals are different somehow.
Yep. We're hardwired to have empathy, to care about other animals and other people. And many of us have cats and dogs who we live with, and we get to know these animals, we understand them, we know they have personalities, they have interests. They express those interests to us. When, you know, we're going to take our dog out for a walk, for example, they know we're going out for a walk and their tail starts wagging and they show clearly that they want to do this. Farm animals have very similar feelings and experiences, but unfortunately in our country most people don't have the opportunity to get to know a cow or a pig or a sheep or a chicken or a turkey, and as a result most people don't understand these animals very well and don't think about them very much when we're at the restaurant or at the grocery store. And at Farm Sanctuary we encourage people to think about our food choices, to think about the fact that in the meat case there are parts of animals who were once living creatures who wanted to enjoy life, who wanted to experience life, just like our cats and dogs. But unfortunately, on factory farms, these animals are not treated like living, feeling animals. They're treated like unfeeling commodities. They're treated like production units from the day they're born till the day they're killed.
An object.
They're treated like an object, not the subject of a life. And this is the kind of thing that, you know, most people, when they think about, don't feel good about. And we want people to eat in a way and make choices that they can feel good about, instead of supporting a system that they want to say, I don't want to know. We think it's important for people to take responsibility for their food choices, to be aware of the consequences of our food choices, and to make thoughtful, humane food choices.
I was so impressed with what you did in Lancaster at the stockyards. However, it brings up an argument, or some people that I know who make their living producing the animals, and they say, but what would we do? It would be taking away our livelihood.
Yeah. Well, whenever there is change, people have to figure out new ways of an income. You know, for example, there aren't that many buggy whip manufacturers in business today. And as things change, new economies evolve. And I think when it comes to agriculture, there's enormous opportunity right now for people who want to produce healthy produce, fruits, vegetables, also value-added products, crafts that are agriculturally based. There's farmers markets, there's ecotourism. People who have land and are growing fruits and vegetables can set up bed and breakfast cabins. They can do farm tours. They can also teach people about growing healthy foods, because there's a growing interest right now in urban and rural settings that people want to grow their own food, want to be more close to the source of their food. So I think there's service opportunities, there's manufacturing opportunities, and there's lots of agricultural opportunities for people who are open-minded and creative.
Is it true that it's not even that economical anymore to raise cattle?
The only reason that meat is as cheap as it is because it's heavily subsidized by tax dollars. We have corn and soybeans that are grown, and they are supported by tax money, and so that when you have livestock producers, they're able to get this feed very inexpensively. If we had to pay the real price for meat, it would be extremely expensive. And so if we had a functional market, one where we were paying the real price of our food, we would see a natural shift towards eating more sustainable, more efficiently produced plant foods instead of the animal foods that we're currently eating. So the subsidy program needs to be adjusted. It needs to be promoting healthy food instead of unhealthy food. And if we had no subsidies, we would see a natural migration towards eating more plant foods and away from the animal farming system that we currently have.
I've seen so many videos now, Paul McCartney narrating Glass Walls, and your book, Farm Sanctuary, is an extraordinary book to have, which I wish is the sort of book you wish everybody could have and consider. Because I think when people sit and read quietly, it's more of a direct link to their hearts and minds.
Yeah. And when people read directly, they have a chance to process the information without lots of external influences. Mm-hmm. And we live in a world where people believe it is normal to eat meat. And so being vegan is seen as a strange way of living for many people. But when you step back and think about it and look at the facts and look at the impacts of our food choices, it makes an awful lot of sense to be eating plants instead of animals. By eating animal foods the way we do in our country, we're eating in a way that's making us sick. And that makes no sense. It's completely irrational. We're also supporting an animal agriculture system that's causing enormous harm to the environment and to our planet. That's also completely irrational, and it is not in our interest. And then we're supporting a factory farming system where the animals are treated so badly that we don't even want to think about it, and we live in denial. And that's not aligned with our values. So if we make choices that are thoughtful and that make sense, we're going to see a big shift. And I think we're in the midst of a change right now. It's very positive.
Well, I know you've participated in the film Forks Over Knives. I was just visiting in Pennsylvania to a high school class reunion, and I'm not going to say which one, but I was staying with some friends who have a restaurant there, and they have wing night.
Wing night?
Wing night.
Like
and I
chicken's wings?
Yes, and because it's a sports bar, and I've discovered that they're all over the area. I mean, wing night is something that is very, very common across the country now.
Yeah.
And I just wished I could think of something I could have said to him that wasn't off-putting, especially since he was my host.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to have a response that people can use, I think, that is not confronting.
Yeah. When we're in the midst of social gatherings and when there's food involved, and especially when it centers around the wings of chickens or the bodies of turkeys like around Thanksgiving, it can be very difficult for vegetarians and vegans. And so at Farm Sanctuary we've tried to come up with alternatives. For Thanksgiving, for example, we encourage people to adopt a turkey and sponsor one who gets to live out their life at Farm Sanctuary instead of eating a turkey during the holiday season. But when we're in social environments and where most people believe it is normal and appropriate for these animal products to be consumed, I think the best thing for us vegans to do is just to be examples of living in a way that is humane and is healthy and doesn't participate in that, but doesn't create a situation where people feel too judged. But it's tough because I think a lot of people feel a little bit uneasy about the factory farming system and about the fact that they're supporting it when they are in the midst of a vegan who is not supporting it, and it sort of causes them to feel uneasy. There's no easy answer to that. Change can be challenging, and when it comes to ethical issues, most people want to see themselves as humane and compassionate. But unfortunately, most people are unwittingly supporting an abusive system. So you have this dissonance between their compassionate selves and their desire to live in a way that is compassionate and humane and their actions. And as vegans, we sort of draw attention to that inconsistency. But I think recognizing that good people do bad things, that people generally want to be humane, but they've developed habits that result in suffering. And I think part of our role is to be an example and provide support for people who are interested in getting out of those bad habits and eating in a way that is more humane and healthier.
It is hard to hold one's tongue.
Yeah. No, but I think being patient, being persistent, being understanding that people who are supporting this factory farming system are not necessarily mean, bad people. They just have habits that they haven't really considered very carefully. And we, I think, can play a role in encouraging people to think about their food choices and to recognize the consequences of those.
Since we're talking about food, what do you like to eat?
One of my go-to breakfasts is oatmeal. Simple as that. Oatmeal with almond milk or soy milk, and I'll put raisins on it and walnuts and sunflower seeds. I also like making green smoothies where I take kale and spinach and I blend those up with bananas and blueberries and either soy milk or almond milk or rice milk or some other kind of non-dairy milk. And I also throw flax seeds in there, and if I want it sweeter, I'll throw a date or two in there. So I really enjoy doing that. And it's healthy and it's tasty.
Yeah, and you don't really have to measure that much. You just kind of...
Oh, you just put it in there.
Just eyeball it.
Eyeball it, exactly. It's very easy.
And with the flax seeds, do you have it ground beforehand?
I do it both. I sometimes throw whole flax seeds in there, and sometimes I use ground flax seeds.
But they kind of grind up a little bit in there?
I have a Vitamix, so everything grinds up.
Oh, I see. Okay. Because I was going to ask if you used a juicer or if you're doing everything in a blender, because lots of people don't have a
Vitamixes are not that expensive. Vitamixes are pretty expensive, and I like the Vitamix and the blending because it includes all of the food. It includes
the fiber
as well as the nutrients and the minerals. So I like blending, although I like juicing too, although I don't have a juicer. So I will maybe get juice when I go to a restaurant or to a friend's house who has a juicer, but at home I blend.
That's fabulous, because most people have a blender.
Yeah, blenders are very easy to use, exactly, and they're common in people's households.
Yes, and I have a Vitamix and a regular blender, and I'm surprised how frequently I go to the regular blender because it has a little bit of a smaller...
Oh yeah, the Vitamix is pretty big.
And, let's have your website so people can get more information.
Yeah, for more information, people can go to our Farm Sanctuary website, which is www.farmsanctuary.org.
.org. We want to be sure of that.
.org.
And just in conclusion, you have a second farm sanctuary on the West Coast.
That's right. Farm Sanctuary now operates 3 shelters, one in Watkins Glen, New York, one in Orland, California, which is north of Sacramento, and one just outside of Los Angeles, which we just recently acquired. So we operate 3 rescue facilities.
And people can make donations on the website, yes?
We encourage people to support Farm Sanctuary. You can make donations on our website, which is farmsanctuary.org. You can also come visit our sanctuaries. We encourage people to come visit.
Well, I want to do that very soon.
Good.
Thank you, Gene, so much.
Thank you, Linda. Thanks for having me.